Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here. Today's episode is called Why You Need the Baer Minimalist. My guest is Mariah Baer. She's the founder of the Baer Minimalist, and she's all about creating spaces that are as chic as they are functional, with her philosophy, minimal clutter, maximum style, guiding the way. This podcast is for you if you know you need to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or another aspect of your life. And you might be wondering if this is the right stage or age in life to make that change. And maybe you don't know where to start. Well, you've come to the right place because I know you're going to get something out of each episode you listen to or watch. Maybe you're also one of those people caught in analysis paralysis. I know, I see you, and I understand. I used to feel the same way. But just stay with me, listen, watch, and I know you'll get one or two steps that'll make a big difference in your life. So feel free to watch, listen, share, subscribe. You can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Apple, and Amazon platforms. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Now let's get into today's conversation and meet my guest, Mariah Baer. Hi, Mariah.
Hi, Susie. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. And I appreciate you taking a break from your busy life to be on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. So tell me about yourself and how you got into the minimalist business.
Sure. So I started the Baer Minimalist almost 9 years ago. And I felt like there was such a need in the market for organization geared towards busy families. I felt like at that point, there wasn't quite the buzz that there is today about organization. And there were a lot of businesses that were focused on helping seniors downsize. But there was nobody focused, I felt like, in the Indianapolis area on families that were in that high consumption stage of life, whether you want to be consuming a lot or not. Sometimes with young kids, it's like you really can't, get ahead of all the things that are coming into your house. So I felt like there was this opportunity within the market to start a business, and it has been busy and wild ever since. So I felt like there was such a nice piece about my home life. At that point, I didn't actually have kids, but I was just always interested in having very curated items within my home and not a lot of clutter. But as you might see from the background, I love color and I love pattern and I love personality. But I just don't love all the extra little stuff that just kind of builds up over time. And so, I've since been stretched. I had twins in 2019. And so I have to put my own principles to the test because those two love to bring little things into the home. But as a company, we are a residential organizing business based here in Indianapolis, and we help busy families create edited and curated spaces within their home that really function for their family. We really try to meet our clients where they're at. So for those looking for Pinterest perfect spaces, of course we can do that, but we always have a lot of questions prior to getting to that place because we want the home to function really well for every single member of the family that resides there.
And I would imagine, just listening to you talk about what you do, that you have a lot of conversation before you even get started on what the goals are, what they're looking for, if they've got an idea what they want their home to look like. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yes. So the way our process works is that the first session, the first time we work with the client, it is all about editing and understanding the space. So We don't have a warehouse of product. I don't have a van full of things I use on every job. There are wonderful companies locally that have a different approach and they do have all the product on hand, but we really like to dig into our clients' environment and understand, okay, I see that this item is stored here in this particular room, but why? Like if you're only using it once a year, maybe it belongs in the basement, or maybe it doesn't actually serve a purpose at all anymore. And so I really encourage clients when they reach out to us, they're generally motivated to see change happen within their home. And kind of a good rule of thumb that we like to live by is pretend you're moving. Even if you're not, pretend you're moving. What would you take with you? What are those things that really put a smile on your face when you walk in or serve a deep purpose for the way you function in your home? And all the other stuff, let's see if it might be able to bless someone else in the community instead.
I think that's a good way to look at it. When you know that your things can maybe help someone else, they've served its purpose where they are now, and they need to go somewhere else.
Absolutely. So very early on in the business, I created an Indianapolis-based donation guide, and it's a cute little true marketing piece that we can hand out to clients. But we've connected with so many nonprofits across the community. We feature them on our blog to really help amplify their needs. And like you said, when a client is kind of on the fence about, oh my gosh, I spent so much money on this, or it was a gift from someone, when we can tie it back to a specific organization and the use case that they have for those items, it's so much easier to let go.
But that letting go is a huge part, and we can talk about that a little further on. But there's a psychological piece that, when you're working with people, you're getting into those conversations about where the piece came from, why they are holding on to it, or maybe a space that's got a lot in there, and there must be a reason why there's particular spaces that accumulate more than others. I'm sure there's a psychological reason for that too.
Yes, yes. I mean, I feel like a lot of our clients, because they are in the stage of still having kids at home, they also are on the other side dealing with aging parents. And oftentimes, as parents get to that place where they maybe need to downsize, these kids, and I say that as the people in their 40s and 50s, end up collecting all of these items from their parents' homes. And for many clients, they're super overwhelmed by all of the things coming in. And yet they're kind of doing the same thing as they save everything that their kids are outgrowing, or maybe every piece of artwork that comes home. And so again, that's kind of why I like to encourage clients, like, act as though you're moving, or as I, had my twins, and I have a boy and a girl, and it was kind of the perfect blessing, because as soon as they grew out of things, I was like, get it out of my house. There's too much in here. But of course, there were those things that I wanted to save. And so I put them all in a box. And then, a couple years later, I looked at them and I thought, this is super cute. But it's, in maybe 30 years when I become a grandparent, like, is this actually something that's going to mean something to my child? Probably not. But today, it's still somewhat, on trend. Could I just hand that off to an organization who might be able to give it to a mom in need? And so I, of course, kept a few things, but sometimes I think that the smaller amount you keep, the more meaning it has, because there's not such an abundance and it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming when you look through.
True. The few pieces I have from my family are truly sentimental things, and it has been as a result of moving and going, I don't want to take it to the next place, that I can release things, and I don't feel as much guilt as I was, and I'm sure you deal with that too, the guilt of, well, I have to keep it because it was a family heirloom, or whatever. So I want to talk to you about when people hear the word minimalism, they often, picture empty rooms and getting rid of everything. How would you define minimalism?
Yes, I mean, in my head, it's like it's a beige place with, less than 30 items and, what have you. There's certainly people that take things to the extreme, but for me, it's just filling your home, filling your schedule, filling your time with things that mean something, and kind of fill your cup. And so, um, in my home, I really do try to like not bring in more than I am letting go. So I have strategies for that. Like I have a recycling bin that sits in my garage so that when I pull in, I go through all the mail and most of it goes in the recycling. It's a smaller bin, not the big bin, but like it's a smaller bin just in case I realize, oh my gosh, I need to go reference that piece of mail. It is still there for a little while before it goes out, but we have two little adhesive containers on the back of our pantry door, one for each kid. That's where a lot of their artwork goes. And then after a month, we'll kind of look through all the things and say, what are the top three things that you might want to save from here? And then we do that again at the end of the school year. I have found that, rather than going to like Target or Home Goods and buying art or something like that, I went through a lot of the heirlooms that had been passed down to my parents and then passed down to me. And we framed some of those pieces for, our dining room. We framed serving utensils from our grandparents to decorate the walls. And we found the original house plans for our home. And that's a big focal point in our family room. So sometimes those are the type of items that end up in a basement and they live there forever and they're not even stored properly. I find a lot of times things are stored in cardboard. You get little critters in there. And it's, by the time you're like, oh, I should do something with this or I should revisit this, it's not even in good condition. So that's, again, kind of what we encourage clients to do. Like, let's go through it all and then determine how we can honor some of these things that have been passed down and then like I said, if things are no longer serving you, let them go to someone else. And the most important thing, honestly, and when I was thinking about just the title of your podcast and what you really try to pull from people, it's pause before you purchase. It is so easy to like click on Amazon or go through that little dollar section at Target and just buy and buy and buy. But a lot of it is kind of meant to be disposable, and that's just not great for the environment either. So pausing before we purchase is such an important thing.
That is a big step, and I think that's a good thing for all of us to remember. Well, it's also a pause before eating, pause before sending that email, a lot of pauses now.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, very, very good point. Was there a moment in your life when you realized I need less, not more?
I think certainly when I had kids, very quickly, I was like, oh my gosh, you really could buy 17 different things for them to bounce in and sway in. And, but then you kind of think back to like, what did my parents buy when I was a child? Like maybe there was just one swing, or maybe they just hung out with me on the floor and we, played or whatever. So I feel like I really tried to take this stance of if it's only going to serve me for a couple of months, let's see if I can get by without it. And I'm, it's funny, my kids are 7 now. They just turned 7 last month. And I'm really trying to teach them as they like got a little bit of money for their birthday and they wanted to go to the store. I think all kids are kind of conditioned to be like quantity over quality. I just want as many things as possible, but I'm trying to teach them about quality. And, sometimes that means you have less, but it's going to last you for longer. And rather than just spending all of it, like if you spend all your money, you will never have any money. But you'll have lots of little things broken, likely surrounding you. And so it's interesting having those conversations with a 7-year-old, but also realizing like the way their brains are starting to turn a little bit as they're deciding, how do I want to spend my birthday money? Maybe I want to think a little bit more about something that would benefit me long term.
Well, it's interesting now that you have kids, you're in the same position as your clients, and you're experiencing these things as well as your clients are, and I'm sure that that is a benefit to your clients to know that you can relate to what they're consuming, and truly I think you're giving them, your kids, teachable moments to say, okay, you have this gift. Do you want to use it? Do you want to save it? Do you want to put it towards charity? I had a client once who wrote a book called The Three Cups, and one cup was for saving, one was for spending, and one cup was for charity. And that's how he taught his kids the not benefit of money, but the value of money, I should say. Yeah. Many people think of minimalism as just cleaning out closets and drawers and things like that, but it's really much deeper than that. How would you describe a lifestyle of minimalism?
I think what's very interesting is people always want to know, like, how organized is your house? And I always say, at the end of the day, it takes me very little time to reset my home. Everything in my house has a place, and we use a lot of the things in our house every single day. I have a very small closet, and I supplement that by I do rent some clothes for different occasions and things like that. There's a lot of rent clothing rental companies now, and so that's a way that I still feel, like I can be trendy without having a closet full of things that I maybe only wear once. Um, with our kids, it's like, can we borrow this from someone? Like if we're in like a phase, like we're in a Lego phase right now. So let's do some trades with other neighbor friends and trade sets when we're done rather than constantly going to the store to buy another. Um, and so I think there's a lot of little things that you can do like that. I think this year we've really tried to be a little bit more focused on our food waste. We started composting a few years ago, and that's been wonderful, but I just feel like food waste is something that I feel like we have some control over as a family. And so we started doing Home Chef, which, it's like, it's not really a cost savings, but there's so much less waste each week because we get the exact ingredients we need in order to make a certain number of meals. And so um, that's been something that's been helpful. But I feel like I referenced this earlier. It also applies the minimalism to just like your digital space. How many people are you following on Instagram, and how easy is it to get kind of sucked into that and find, oh my gosh, an hour has passed and all I did was just scroll through a bunch of people who are likely trying to sell me something. So it is, I think it's first kind of figuring out that foundation of what do I want to spend my time doing, what is important to me, and then allowing your environment around you to support that.
Well, so much of our physical space is an identity, and but it also can be a reason that we don't get to it. We don't clean it out. We're avoiding it, and it really does affect. And I'm big on what contributes to our health, and that's not just diet and exercise. That's our home environment, and that was one of the reasons why I was looking forward to our conversation, because our home environment, if you don't like your space, you're probably not going to want to sit in it, or you're not going to want to come home to it, or you're not going to want to invite people into it. And so it really speaks to our mental health as well as our physical surroundings.
I agree. And I think about, the bedroom, where you really need to recharge each night through sleep. And sometimes it's like the laundry is piled so high in the corners, and there's just, maybe your kids bring their toys in there, and there's just all this extra stuff that doesn't need to be in there. And the way that that just is constantly weighing on you. I think there are people out there who, can function even if the space is in disarray. I mean, we work with all different types of clients, but sometimes it's like those people attract the opposite. They attract a partner who's like, I cannot function in my space when things are out of order. And it is funny to see how those people end up marrying each other. And, it's our goal is, like I said, to kind of meet clients where they're at. So, one spouse might be okay with a little bit of a mess or things piled all over the kitchen island, and the other is really struggling. And so let's create a system where that no longer affects the one, but the other is still able to, know where things are. The importance of everything having a home.
Very interesting. For someone who feels overwhelmed by their stuff, where's the best place to begin?
Well, I think the reason why organizing companies have become so prevalent is sometimes you do need to call in external support. I always say we're like another you, only we have no distractions inside your home. Like we don't need to take the dog out or answer calls or, do any of these other things. We don't have to pick up the kids. So we can come in, and we normally work in 4-hour increments at our clients' homes. It's like we can come in, we can pull everything out of a closet, pull the client in, edit through things quickly. We load our car up with the donations, we put it all back together. That can actually happen in a day. Whereas sometimes I think what can be so discouraging when you're trying to organize in your own home is you pull it all out, something distracts you, or you've got to go get the kids, and then it just lives there. And it's so frustrating. And so you throw it all back in the drawer and you think, I'll do it again another time. And so it can feel really challenging, I think, to tackle an organizing project. And so if you are open to doing it on your own, it's like just start with a drawer, because a drawer can likely be taken out, gone through, put back together in an hour. And then if you have a little bit more time, do the next drawer. But like, don't think you're going to do your whole kitchen in a day.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I always feel better when I go through a drawer. I mean, there's something cathartic about the purging and moving it on to the next level, to the next place. But I remember years ago when the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, his wife died, and they had an estate sale, and they allowed the public to come in for free just to look at the items, but then you had to like pay to come in for the actual live auction. And so I went there with my spouse, and it literally the drawers were just dumped on tables. So you had water bottles, you had cassette tapes, but on the other spectrum, you had fur coats, you had Indianapolis Colts memorabilia, you had lovely jewelry. And I looked at my husband and I said, well, if this isn't a reason to start downsizing and decluttering, I said, I will haunt you from the grave if I die before you, if you do this with my stuff.
Yes. I mean, that is the thing, right? Because, at some point, all of those things were important to her. And then they're just kind of dumped on a table for the public to look through. And so, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like when clients in their 40s and their 50s contact us and we get a head start, it's like everything that's exiting your house, what a gift to your future self, and what a gift to your kids ultimately, as you age. And it's not to say that your house has to be empty, but fill it with things that truly mean something. And I've worked with clients where as they've parted ways with maybe important pieces of furniture from their lineage, that sort of thing. We take photos and we create like a beautiful photo book of that. There's also a local gal here in Indianapolis who we partner with a lot. Her name is, or her company name is Less is Mora, and she does something similar with kids' art. So you can share your kids' art with her. She professionally photographs it and then puts it into a beautiful coffee table book. And so I've actually done that. My kids now have three of these albums each. And honestly, I threw a lot of the art away. It's like it wasn't that important, but I wanted to commemorate it. And so it's in this beautiful book. They think it's super cool. But all the odd, like 3D size pieces of art or just like strange things that they brought home, they're gone. And it's okay. Like I feel like we can still see it. It's in this beautiful book, but I don't have bins and bins of, art that needs to be gone through someday when they're my age and probably thinking like, why did you save this, mom? Like this is so weird.
Well, but what you've given them is a keepsake to take with
Yes.
them and to share with their children and their grandchildren too.
Yes.
So it served multiple purposes there, I think.
Exactly. Exactly.
So Mariah, is what's the mistake people make when they start decluttering or minimalizing?
Well, I think beyond trying to tackle too big of a space with too little time, I think oftentimes what people might think is one of the most exciting parts of an organizing project is going to the container store or, going to buy the bins. Of course, it's like consuming more, right? And so without editing their space, without deciding what's really going to be stored in that particular closet or drawer or cabinet, they go to the container store and they pick out, and I love the container store, believe me, but they pick out, the wrong size bins or not the right quantity or something that's really pretty but doesn't necessarily serve as the right vessel to store whatever needs to go in that closet. And so we come into spaces all the time and there's too much organizing product in there. It's like we got too many things and they don't quite work, and we're still frustrated with our space. And that's why I truly believe that first step has to be editing the space. And then, it's sometimes this is really hard to do when it is your home, but pretend like you're just there for the very first time. Like, yes, your scissors have always been in this drawer, but is that where they need to be? Or you've always kept your coolers in the pantry, but really could they go in the garage? Like sometimes things are just, they're not quite in the right spot in your home based on the frequency of use or who is using them.
Right, very good. What daily or weekly habits support a minimalist lifestyle?
I think taking that time every night to kind of reset your house. I feel like when things do have a home, it shouldn't take that long, but just getting everything back to where it belongs at the end of the day is so important. And I do think it helps with your sleep. It allows you to go to bed just feeling like, okay, like the day is done. Um, I think, like I said, just kind of pausing before you purchase. So sometimes I'll tell clients like fill the cart. If like online shopping is your thing, fill the cart, but don't buy it. Like let it sit there for a week or let it sit there for a month and then go look back and see, do I actually need that? Or was I just kind of excited about it in the moment? I use Pinterest to kind of save, or earmark things that I would love. My husband also knows about it. So when he's like, gosh, what should I get Mariah for her birthday? Because I do still like gifts. I'm like, go to Pinterest. That has things that I truly want on there. Versus like maybe another candle or, something like that. And I think the other thing is just being super mindful of why you're purchasing something. Like, is it going to serve a purpose? Do you have a specific place that you're going to display this particular item? If you are buying, a new article of clothing, does it go with multiple things that you already own? Or if it's kind of a one-off thing, could you just potentially rent for that particular event that you're going to? So I think just being a little bit more cautious before those things come in really, really does support that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was thinking as I was listening to you, I was thinking about the holidays and how we all feel the urge to, give gifts to our friends and, or hostess gifts. Like we can't come empty-handed certain places. And yet you're like, gosh, I have another candle and another candle I probably won't use, you know what I mean? And, we know it's the thought that counts, obviously, but it's just like, gosh, there's a point where I want to say no stuff. It's just the fact that we're getting together, or it doesn't have to be a thing. It can be an activity or something else.
We've done kind of a consumable gift guide over the last several years leading up to the holidays. So, all of the really neat Indianapolis based companies that offer experiences. There's a new pasta shop in Zionsville. We listed them this year. They offer pasta making classes, and then you bring home pasta that you get to eat and it doesn't take up space. Or just like there's so many neat experiences, whether it's a concert or if you have grandkids, gifting them a children's museum membership or a zoo membership or something like that. And I've really tried to um, express that to the grandparents in our life too. Like, we don't necessarily, there are certain things we need, but there's a lot that, is just kind of like a one-off toy. You play with it a few times, or it's a craft kit and you kind of tear it apart and then it's done. And so let's look at ways that they can create lasting memories with you instead.
Perfect. I like that. You talked about a pause rule before making purchases, and it is such a consumer consumer society we live in, and become so easy, almost an addiction, because we know you can get it the same day. You want it that badly. But I love your pause, and I love the fact, and I've done it too. And I'm so glad you said this today. But I've done that. I'll put something in my basket on Amazon, and I'll go, do I really need that now, or is I just want it in the moment? And sometimes I'll go back in and say, save it for later. So if I save it for later and I go, I don't need that, I really don't need that, it's a great deterrent.
It is. We do each January, just kind of like a no new things, like no spending in January. It's something my husband and I do. I've talked about it on Instagram. One year I attempted to do a group, and that got a little like unwieldy to manage. But there's a great book, actually. The author's name is Ashley Piper, called No New Things, and it really is about when you pause your spending on, the way I see it, on like more stuff, and you also take that month. January is a great time to do it because it's so cold outside, but you take that time to also begin to go through your home. You go through your closets and your drawers and things like that to begin to edit and get rid of things. It's amazing how good your home feels by the end of that month. But sometimes I think in that, consumption phase of life, there is so much coming in on a daily basis. Some of it is outside of our control, and much of it is inside of our control. And it's kind of nice to just take that break once a year.
Well, especially January, because you've been so, not you personally, but you cumulatively, we're all, in the holidays and receiving gifts, and then, you've got this abundance of stuff, and then you have, where it kind of slows down in January, it's colder, it's a really good time to do that. So I think that that's a great idea. I think I'm going to adopt that.
Yes. And it's a great time to like use all the restaurant gift cards that people have given you. And with little kids, it's like, okay, let's do a craft kit. Like, you got all this stuff for Christmas. Let's pull it out, use it, pass it along. And so it's neat to see, even within the pantry, like, let's see if we can go another 3 days without going to the grocery store. What can we create with all these random condiments we have in here, or grocery staples? It's like you do acquire all of these things, and sometimes I think we just wait till they hit their expiration date so that we can throw them. And it's like, let's try and use them instead.
Yeah, I like that. And one year I bought a cookbook that was 5 ingredients or less.
Yes.
And I think that that was such a fun experience to go through that. But I was also going to tell you, I listened to someone's podcast last week on your clothing and how you should go through your clothing and put it on and see how do you want to feel every morning.
Sure.
And, it goes even down to your underwear and going through and how does that make you feel? And you should really feel good about yourself and that you should have nice underwear and things like that. That's the first layer on your skin. So, I mean, I think you could do this with every aspect of your life, this.
And I think, again, with the quick purchases that we're all able to make, just how easy it is to buy, it it's so easy to purchase things that are kind of allowing you to have this like aspirational life, right? Like, oh my gosh, I love that blouse. If you really think about it, it's like I have nowhere to wear this. But sometimes it's like, okay, I bought it and I like seeing it hanging in my closet, but like again, could it just like live on your Pinterest board instead? Like my Pinterest board is kind of my aspirational wardrobe, like but I don't have anywhere to wear those things, so I don't actually need them. But it is fun to look at them and think, okay, if I was like, a very different person living in a very different spot, maybe I would wear all of these things.
Well, it's also a different stage in your life, and she was mentioning that too. The stylist who was on this podcast, she's like that may have represented an old you that doesn't exist any longer, and who you are today may not be the suit wearing person or the business dresses all the time, and that's not our lifestyle as much anymore anyway. But I'm a health coach, but I'd like to say that I'm an accountability coach. I hold people accountable to their goals. And so how do you hold yourself accountable to this type of lifestyle?
I think I'm definitely a type A person. So I think some of it is just ingrained in me. But I think I've also seen the other side. I know what it feels like when my house feels light and it feels put together, things are in their place. I know how that feels, and I want to feel that way as often as possible. Sometimes I think that working with clients, maybe they've never felt that before. And so it is easy for things to be out of control and continue to stay out of control until they get to a place where they realize I need help and I need a blueprint for this. And I find a lot of our clients, once we put a system in place, and again, we do that by editing first and really listening to our clients of how do you want to function in your space? How do you access these items? Who else is part of this within your home? We do put together systems that end up working for them long term. So what they needed really was a blueprint. They need to know where the things are supposed to go, but they're okay on a daily basis getting things put back. They just aren't sure where to start. And that's where our expertise comes into place.
Do you ever have clients slip and they call you back and
Of course, not, we have some clients who have kind of a maintenance relationship with us where we go maybe each season and we reset their closets or we, do a good edit within their pantry to pull out anything expired. Um, some clients like that in the same way that they might enjoy having a house cleaner come or your landscaper outside or your personal trainer. Like you said, you're an accountability coach. We can oftentimes be that for the home too. It's like I just need it reset quarterly. But like I said, sometimes we have this incredible project and then we don't hear from those clients again for that same project. And it's because they're able to maintain it on their own.
yeah? Well, it's a mindset shift and a lifestyle change, and they have to adopt it, or else they will fall back into some old patterns, I would imagine.
And that actually brings up a really good point. Sometimes clients are like, my entire house feels out of control and I need the whole thing worked through. And we can absolutely do that. But I always like to talk about the pace at which we do that. Could we come in and do your entire house in a week? Sure. We do moves all the time where we are unpacking everything and figuring out where everything belongs. But for the person that's lived in their house for a long time, could we do that? Yes, we could. But that is so many micro changes that you need to adopt in your life. That would be incredibly hard for a client, I think, to have their entire home changed. And like, this is going to influence the way you shop for groceries. This is going to influence the way you fold your clothes after, you pull them out of the dryer. This is how, only half your kids' toys are out at any given time, and you're going to start doing a toy rotation. So that's where I like to talk through clients like, let's do some of the most widely used spaces in your home first. Get your family feeling good about those and feeling like they can all contribute to keeping them that way. And then we'll do the next space. And so sometimes working through a whole home takes us a year or two, and we're not there all the time, but we're there enough and giving little breaks in between that they can really adopt those changes into their life.
Yeah, that's a lot like being a coach and not giving them too many goals, you know. If we just tackle just a couple goals, it makes it more so you want to set them up for success and not overwhelm. Yeah, absolutely. So Mariah, what does working with you look like? You've kind of given me a little piece of that, but can you share what working with you and your team looks like?
Sure. So we have a wonderful team, myself and six additional organizers. So sometimes we bring a large team. That would be if we're doing a move project for someone. In other cases, it's just a team of two. So one person is working with the client to do all of the editing work, while the other organizer is pulling things out of the next space or bringing donations to the car or resetting a space. But we come in and we really try to take as much off of the client's plate as possible. So they kind of come in for like a decision making blitz, and we talk through, we've categorized everything. And so they can quickly say, yes, this is important. No, I do not need that. We take all the donations off site. And we also have taken measurements of the space, and we know what's going to be stored there so that we can put together a product plan that's very specific to the space, the items that are going to be stored, exactly what we think will work. And we love to see a client's home too, because I love design, and I love, bringing personality into a closet, even if it's a small space. And so we love to work with the client's home aesthetic and, of course, their budget. And then we come back and we install the product. We are big believers on labeling things, and we always take video and send it to the clients to say, even when we've walked them through it, like, again, here is where everything belongs, and where you can find these things. And I think those reference videos can come in handy, especially in families where there's multiple people living under one roof.
Yeah, I think I'm a visual person, so that's like I visually remember seeing something,
Yeah.
in a certain place, and so
Yeah.
when it's not there, it throws me off,
Yeah,
But
exactly. I know. I go a little crazy when I'm like, where is the thing that is supposed to be here? Like, who touched it? Sometimes it's
yeah,
me, and I just forgot.
yeah. So Mariah, what's been the most surprising transformation you've seen in a client?
You know, I have a few clients that I've worked with for years, and one of the things that I love the most is when they text me and they're like, I was about to buy this, and then your voice popped in my head and I paused. Like, to me, that is actually the most surprising transformation, right? Like, we see like wild transformations when it comes to space, but I think the thing that lights me up the most is when someone's mindset has begun to shift, and someone who maybe was a bit of an impulsive shopper in the past, or, always felt like they needed to be surrounded by so many things. when they do get to that place where they are just slowing down a little bit before purchasing. To me, that's, I'm like, music to my ears. This is great.
Yeah, it means they were listening to you and paying attention as much as you were listening to them and what they wanted to accomplish. So I love hearing that too. And that's a fun part about working with clients and seeing them recognize the change and being able to think through the solution, that they
Yeah.
don't have to always do the same thing they've been doing before.
Right, right, absolutely.
So, do you think living minimally is a form of self-care?
I do. I mean, it is funny. So I started the business 9 years ago. We have organized for hundreds of clients, and I still come home at the end of the day and I'm like, what drawer can I go through here? I mean, for me, like I love organizing and I love when spaces look very intentional. And I love when the items within a space really tell a story of who you are, your travels and your family, and, things are able to be put on display that are really important to you. And so, yes, I do think it is a form of self care.
I would agree with that too. And self-care to me was such a taboo word until I had to really do some basic self-care to heal some parts of my life. But I don't feel guilty about it. And for me, when I notice areas of my space getting cluttered, that's telling me something. I need to think about why I'm putting all that stuff there. And so for me, it's a good stop and say, okay, I'm not saving it for a rainy day to do it. I'm going to do it now and I'm going to feel better about it. So, yeah. Yeah. So, what is your SOS? What's something for people who are listening or watching today? What's their takeaway? One or two steps that they can do right now without not only calling you, obviously, or emailing.
Yeah, sure, sure. And we would love to help, but I do feel like I think I've probably said it 3 or 4 times already, but just pausing before you purchase. I feel like even if there's just one thing that you were going to put in your cart and buy today that you take out, that is one less thing that you have to make a decision about. I think we spend a lot of our waking hours managing our things, right? It's doing the research, it's buying them, it's dealing with returns, it's, figuring out where it's going to go. And there's so much decision making and time focused around managing our things. And if we just slow down our purchasing, we have all that time to do something much more important with, and kind of grounding into what you want to use that extra time for is really important.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so, but this was such a fun conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fun for me too. So, Mariah, how can people find you?
Yes, so my last name is spelled Baer. So the Baer Minimalist is where the name comes from. And we are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at the Baer Minimalist. Our website is the same. And yes, we try to give a lot of tips. We try to share a lot of donation resources throughout the Indianapolis community. And we love working with clients and just helping to make change within their home in a way that better supports their lifestyle and their family.
Yeah, well, I've started following you on Instagram, I believe, but also your email. So I get an update on that. So I'm excited. And, it's going to, more is going to sink in now that I've talked to you. And I don't know that I'll ever be a total minimalist, but I'm getting better at not accumulating.
I think that's great. I think that's great. And that's fine. Again, I think some people thrive on being surrounded by all sorts of things. Other people can't handle things. And most of us are kind of somewhere in the middle.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Well, Mariah, it's just been such a pleasure talking with you today on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And I'm so glad that people get to talk to you or get to listen or watch you. And I get to talk to you about the Bare Minimalists and how people can make some little changes to make a big difference in their life. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Friends, sadly, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for listening or watching SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And thank you, Mariah Baer, for being my guest and joining me today. I really enjoyed our conversation today about minimalist living and making choices to pause before purchasing and to maybe go through one drawer first. And reaching out to Mariah and her team for big projects in your house and room organization. And it would just be fun for everyone to take that step and go through and see if you have one or two things that maybe aren't serving a purpose in your life, and you can pass it along to someone else. I know Mariah and her team will do a wonderful job for you. So I've enjoyed this podcast because it's all about the things that contribute to our health, and that's not just diet and exercise. So hopefully you walk away with more tools in your toolbox and more resources to make those changes. And if you're enjoying this podcast and think others should be watching it or listening to it, please share it. So until next time, take care, and I hope our paths cross again.